Hey there, it is Friday, December 19th, last Friday for shopping, or baking cookies, or whatever you're doing for the holiday season here. And we've had a house full of people. Had a lot of people coming and going lately, and it's going to continue for the next week. So, not getting much done musically, but enjoying listening to some pretty cool Christmas albums. That one, we're going to go into a little theory lesson with some of the chords you just heard in Jingle Bell Rock there. I was thinking about talking about sevenths and minor sevenths and stuff like that, but last week I started talking about a couple odd chords, seventh chords with flatted ninths in them, and what was the other weird one? Oh, that was just a ninth chord in first inversion, meaning the third in the bass. But talk about a couple unusual chords that we just heard. We can do a little analysis of Jingle Bell Rock here. But we did have a new lesson come out. Nesh put together a lesson of Bee Gees tunes, one of everybody's favorites. How Deep Is Your Love? I hope everybody's had a chance to check that out. I don't think I put an announcement up in the forum. It'll be up by the time you see this. And but there's a few things that happen in Jingle Bell Rock that you should pay attention to. And one of the things I want to talk about was sevenths. I will going to go in really briefly into sevenths. You typically have two notes you can add as the seventh for the chord. You've got the three notes that make up the triad. Whether it's major or minor, there are still two possibilities for the seventh. The seventh can be the note that is the real seventh note of the scale, which is just a half step below the root, because the root is the eighth note of the scale. And so a G chord, for example, then, what makes it major 7 is adding the seventh note of a G scale, which is F sharp. And that's exactly what happens at the beginning of Jingle Bell Rock. That's the melody. What we're hearing there is that melody note is the major 7th. So it changes from a G chord to a G major 7th. And then goes to a 6th. The melody is an E. Now the bass goes up a half step. Oh, can't do that. Got to do this. And when the bass goes up a half step from a major chord, it creates a diminished chord. So if I was just strumming this, you could hear this chord be a G sharp diminished. And so then it continues into chords that are built on step 2 of the scale, A minor, and step 5. So that's what we heard. 1, major 7, 6, 1 again, sharp 1 diminished, just by going to G sharp in the bass. Then A minor 7, and D7. The chord I didn't get to last week that I was going to talk about, it ends up on chord 5, a D chord, but with a sharp 5th, A sharp, and that's the melody note, giving us an augmented chord. I know a lot of you are afraid of diminished and augmented chords, but right here in the first line of Jingle Bell Rock, we have one of each. A diminished chord when the bass goes up a half step, and when it lands on chord 5, instead of just major with an A in it, it's got A sharp in it. And then the second line repeats. A minor, D7, then an A7. That's the end of the second A section. Now the B section, which is the next 8 measures, has to pretty much start on C. So what we're going to do, we could use a G7 by bringing in F natural. So that'd be considered our flatted 7th, and that's the definition of the chord we just call 7. So G7 has an F in it, G major 7 has F sharp in it. And that sends us to the chord that it's 5 of, which is C. And a C sharp diminished. G. E minor to A7. D7. A minor 7, D7. Here's our augmented note again. Big ending, G major 7. B minor 7 flat 5. And an E augmented, resolving to E. So we have augmented chords, multiple augmented chords and multiple diminished chords in Jingle Bell Rock. And what happens at the end? C, chord 4, to C minor. And then secondary dominant, A to A7 to D7. Minor 7 flat 5, augmented, C major, minor. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a story that some of you probably heard. So this is how I got into Christmas stuff. I alluded to this a little bit last week because my an album I got when I was probably 17 or 18. Was John Fahey's Christmas album, and it had these ragtime versions of Christmas carols, and he strung them together in medleys. And so I really like that idea of not playing a song not just playing a song for a minute and a half, because when you hear it instrumentally, that's long enough. By the way, I'm still fighting a broken nail, living with a broken nail. So it's my trusty thumb pick has to stick around for a while. Anyway, in the early 80s, I can't remember what year this, I bet it was 1980. Because I think it was before I even met my wife, before I met Nani, which happened in 82. Anyway, somebody called our store from Macy's, and they wanted entertainment in the stores. Typically piano players or some things like that, for the 12 days before Christmas. And 5 hours a day. Now, this was, again, 1980, and I was, a poor, struggling guitar teacher here in Los Gatos, and usually going to work at about 3 in the afternoon, usually starting lessons when people were getting out of school, and then for adults later. So my normal, work hours were like about 3:30, let's say, to 9 or so. And I was just doing that, I think, 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Yeah. Anyway. But I'd have like 10 or 12 students every day squeezed into those 6 or 7 hours. And so somehow Macy's got a hold of my partner Greg and I, and they were looking for some entertainment. And I thought, this is a good way to make some extra Christmas money. It was like $10 an hour for 5 hours a day and 12 days in a row. So it added up to a pretty good chunk of change for the heading into the Christmas season. And I pretty sure that was that seems to ring a bell with what I was getting paid for that. But I didn't know very many Christmas songs, and so I had this book that I have not been able to find for years. Basically a fake book, like the real book, and it had like 100 Christmas tunes in it. And the first day, I just went down there with this book, and I had played probably a half a dozen of these before. The ones I'd stolen from, or the ones I'd heard from on John Fahey's album, "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," "Angels We've Heard on High," "God Rest You Merry Gentlemen." That was probably about it, the ragtimey ones. Oh, and then the goofy ones. I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus and Up on the Housetop and Winter Wonderland. But actually, I didn't have very finished versions of any of those. And so I sat in a corner of Macy, like maybe where what turned out to be really fun was the gift wrap area, because that's where people were kind of prisoners for a little while. So I eventually started hanging out just in the gift wrap area. And I think I was going in there at 10 o'clock every day, like when they opened, and I was there from like 10 to 3. And had this book and a music stand, and just kept flipping through it, playing songs. Well, by the third or fourth day, I probably knew 50 of these things. And they are really fun to play. Oh, you know what? One of my students was... gonna see if I can remember one that I hardly ever play because a student was working on it yesterday. I'm not sure if I put that one on my first album of Christmas tunes. Oh, I only have one. But anyhow, the student was working on that this week, and it's just a really cool melody. Okay, where was I going with the rest of this story? Was so over the years, I kind of spent a lot of time playing, just enjoying Christmas tunes and teaching them to my students. You know, some are really easy to do instrumentally. So if you're looking for an easy Christmas tune, Christmas Tree is probably pretty easy too. Anyway, enough of that. I got to finish my story. It's almost over. But what I did do was a couple of years later, I'm not sure how I got this idea. I thought, you know what, I have all these Christmas tunes in fairly good shape. I should probably record them, and decided to go make an album. In the meantime, one of my students, who was a high school student at the time, was working the really local TV station. It was called KCAT, KCAT, here in Los Gatos. Got it? Wanted to come to my house, or I forget where I was living. Oh yeah. I was over on Oakland Way, Oakland Place. Anyway, wanted to come visit. Wanted to record me playing stuff. So they came and set up a camera in front of my tree, and even shot some videos of my little Lionel train, my Southern Pacific Lionel that I got when I was 3 years old. And then they ran this like 20-minute video nonstop, 24 hours a day, while the station was shut down over Christmas time. So anybody that tuned into, and it was on the local cable channel. So I have a link to that in here because it's still up and available at some place, I think at our Acoustic Snapshots area. So if you want to take a look at what I was playing, how I was playing the Christmas tunes, and how I looked 41 years ago, I'll have a link to that in here. All right, I'm going to end with a couple of my favorites. Merry Christmas. Catch you soon.